Uh, yeah, so I also wanted to thank all the participants because by joining this seminar, you have already kind of indicated that you want to be in the science career. That's a great sign that you have at least made, 25% of your journey is already done if you have made the decision that you want a career in science. So congratulate you guys for actually signing up to be here. So thank you for that. My presentation will last about 35, 40 minutes. And then as Nidhi had mentioned, we will open it up for discussion. And I think Gyanesh is going to moderate that session. So if you do have questions, write them down and I'll be happy to answer at the end of my presentation. So what I'm going to talk to you about, here are the points I'm going to present to you. First of all, I want to present to you what are your options. If you're a BS or an MS and PhD, what are the options that exist today? And I'll tell you why that's important, because the options that existed for me or my father are very different than what are available today. So before you choose anything, you should know what your options are. Once I tell you about that, I'll also tell you about how to choose. I mean, a lot of us don't know how to make a decision, right? It's not as easy as saying, I want to go see this movie. This is a career decision. So making a career decision includes a lot of strategic thinking. And I'll tell you how, certainly use my own experience and tell you how I made those changes. And once you have started a career, it's very important to build upon it. You should not stay static. And there is certain, again, tactical things you can do to build. I also want to tell you what employers look for, because your first job will be very likely through an employer. So what are they really looking for? I'll give you some feedback on that based on my experience. And last but not the least, we are in times which is very, very moving very, very rapidly. So unless you're not, if you're staying static, you're going to actually fall behind. So you have to keep moving forward. It's very important. So I'll tell you about how to keep improving as well. So you heard some of my background from Ganesh, but I specifically want to show you the career path I took. So my BS and MS shown here in red are actually from India. I did a BS from Osmania University. I did an MSc from Central University of Hyderabad. I'm very grateful that for that education because it was very inexpensive. And honestly, it set me to be successful when I went to US to do a PhD and postdoc. So I often hear a lot of times that the Indian education quality is not good. I would strongly suggest that you should take that out of the mind because that is not true. That is definitely, especially if you do from a larger city, if you get a bachelor's or a master's degrees, you're pretty much guaranteed state of the art knowledge that you will get. So, and that will make you ready to do anything else globally, not just India. So, my first job was at Parke-Davis, which is also was later on bought off by Pfizer as Ann Arbor. At Ann Arbor, at Ganesh said, I was a senior scientist. That was my very first real job because a postdoc is still not considered as a job, right? So this was my first job. Uh, Parke-Davis Pfizer is like a very secure environment. It was great. I mean, when I entered in there, I thought I would retire there. It was like entering in any government job because there was a lot of security and resources and everything. But after 5 years, I actually left. I went to a startup company called AtheroGenics that is listed here and became vice president of R&D. So I'll tell you why I did that. A lot of people still question, why didn't you stay on as this, Fortune 500 uh, company and then kind of just retire because there's no, I mean, those jobs are rare to get. But I took a chance. So I'll tell you about that. Then again, as Ganesh said, I became the chief scientific officer for Dr. Reddy's. I was the global head of R&D, and that was a fantastic opportunity for me. And I'll tell you, I mean, one of the things I'll tell you is you have to remain visible as a scientist. And Dr. Reddy's, that position made me very, very visible globally. I owe a lot to that position and the time I spent. And then I became a CEO and finally now. So if you, two things, one is my foundational education was in India. So please don't knock the education you're getting today. It will lay foundation for you to be successful globally. Second thing I want you to note is that I have made changes in my career path, not parallelly, but always one title ahead of where I was last time, senior scientist, VP, CSO. That also is very important, and I'll tell you why. So, and I'll narrate some stories from my career that I think will be useful for you. One of the first things I think you should understand is how the job patterns are emerging is actually changed a lot during the last 20, 30 years. For example, my father was a scientist. He used to work at IICT. Um, for him it was in those days 1950s when he started his job, it was once in a lifetime job, which is you enter a government job and you retire from there. You never ever think of changing your job, because in those days security, job security was the number one thing, right, in those days. Then when it comes to me, I mean, I started my career in 1990s, and I was different. I changed 3 4 jobs, and a lot of people of my generation have also done that. So very different. That is because we had more opportunities than my father did. Coming to your generation, I think all of you will probably change 4 to 5 jobs. Some of you might even not look for a job. You might be an entrepreneur. So my point here is the opportunities available for you today professionally are far, far superior to what my father had or I had. To be honest, and I say this repeatedly, if the opportunities available in India today were available when I left India, I probably would not even have left. So India is no longer, as you know, we are a developing country. We are no longer poor. So people's ability to take risks has significantly gone up. My father didn't have that option. I had that partial option. But your generation has a lot of options of taking risk. But taking risk doesn't just mean you fall off a cliff of a mountain. It has to be calibrated. It has to be calculated, and we'll talk about that. So bulk of what I'm going to tell you, I'm assuming that a lot of you have already decided and are master's students. So the journey as a scientist begins with getting a bachelor's degree, a master's, and then PhD. The transition from B.Sc to M.sc, I think, is very easy. Most people who want to be scientists automatically do M.sc. The transition from M.sc to PhD is a tough one because you're looking at a commitment of 4 or 5 years, and somewhat you're also locked into a career path. Once you do a PhD, it's very hard to go back and say, I want to be a bank officer, right? So that's why that decision has to be very carefully thought through. And I'll tell you how you can make that choice as well. So, and last after PhD, what do you do? And I'll cover that too. So a lot of options available. B.Sc to M.sc is a no-brainer, but M.sc onwards, you have choices to make. So let's look at the options for masters. By the way, Ganesh, can you hear me loud and clear? I just want to make sure.
Yes,
Yes?
sir.
All right, thank you. So the options, I have actually put them in 2 buckets. The first bucket is academia, and I'll talk about that. The second bucket on the right-hand side is industry. Remember, my father did not have that industry bucket, so he had to go look for a government. I had the option of, the industry was just starting to hire scientists, so I had that option. As you will see, there are so many more options, even within academia and industry, than those that existed about 20, 30 years back. So let's just focus on the left-hand side, which is academia. So you can be, if you have a master's degree, typically you will be working in a lab. You would be what's called a research associate. There are different titles, but research associate is one of them. You could be a demonstrator in a lab. So if you know, universities and colleges have biology labs, and they have to have junior faculty who run the lab. So that's called a demonstrator. Um, you could also be a faculty in a college. It's very unlikely that with a master's, you will get a faculty position in a university. But smaller colleges, yes, I think there's a very good chance that you will get that. So The academia choices are there, and it's a great career. I have not been in academia, but I see fellow academic people, Professor Reddy, and how well they have done. So it's clearly a good choice for people. And I'll tell you, a typical academia profile in my mind, I'll tell you about that. The other option is industry. With a master's, you could either be at the bench level, which is, working on different projects, or there are also other roles. And I want to describe to you what those other roles are, because these are emerging roles that nobody really had thought about in the past. So the other roles, I've shown them here in three buckets. The topmost, this is a stick and ball model, just trying to continue the science theme here, is the work in the lab. So you could be a project manager in the lab. So if you know there are 5 or 6 projects that go on in a lab, especially in the industry, there's always, and there has to be one individual who kind of manages, because the supervisor doesn't really have day-to-day time. The other is lab administrator. So a lab administrator runs the lab, orders things, keeps the finances, the budgeting and all the paperwork and all that. So these two jobs clearly are available to you with a master's degree, but these are more confined to a lab. So there'll be a principal investigator. Like I was a principal investigator in Pfizer, and I had I think that I had like 5 people in my lab. And there was one person who was designated as a project manager slash lab administrator. So, and she took care of a lot of the things day to day. So those options are clearly available to you, as well as being a bench scientist that I already talked about. Now, there are some non-lab opportunities also arising for master's students. One is what's called a clinical trial monitor. So as you know, in the industry, once the drug gets into clinical trials, these are human trials, and they run for months or years together, and somebody has to manage them. So for example, as Pfizer is doing a clinical trial in a hospital, then somebody from Pfizer has to be the clinical trial monitor, just to make sure that the patients were dosed properly, there was nothing bad that happened, and data management, all that. So this is actually a very exciting job. It also allows you to travel a lot, because clinical trials go all around the world. They are not just held in one city. So clinical trial monitors, I find a lot of young people with masters with some interest in statistics usually go into this. And this is something that is actually become a good career choice for people with masters. So you can Google that and you can look what it entails. The other is being into patent. The other side of the business in industry is we file for patents. And these patents are drafted by patent lawyers, who themselves are mainly lawyers, but they're not really scientists necessarily. So they need somebody with an understanding of the science to be able to write the patent. So a lot of people now are going towards that too. And both of these, I should tell you, you can do online courses for free to educate yourself on what a patent assistant needs to do, or a clinical trial. And you could actually go do online courses from Harvard sitting here now. That's an opportunity I never had. So the most emerging, I think, the most exciting thing that's coming up for people with science background, especially at masters, is working in a venture capital. Startup companies have to be funded by somebody, and these are called venture capitalists. These are like mini banks. They give you money, and then they allow you to develop your product. And a lot of these people are finance people, so they also need somebody with a science background. So if your intuition is towards business, combining business with science, venture capitalist related jobs are actually very exciting now. Again, you have to travel a lot. There's a lot of due diligence you'll have to do when somebody requests for funding. You have to go through what the product is, summarize it for senior management, present it, defend it. So it's a nice, exciting career. You could be an entrepreneur. I mean, to be an entrepreneur, all it takes is a good idea, science-related idea. It's one of the few things that doesn't need a PhD. An entrepreneur is somebody who starts a business, right? So you could be. And finally, business analyst. Now, every single bank or a newspaper or company, they all have business analysts. Business analysts basically will track what are other companies doing? Are they working on the same thing as us? If so, when will they have a product? How much will the product bring in? So if you people have interest in marrying business and science, I would say the last ball of business should be on your radar. And again, there are things you can do to learn about it online. So this is for MS. Fortunately or unfortunately, the options if you have a PhD are much, much more diverse than a master's. Just looking at the left-hand side, you could be a teaching faculty. And so, which is basically, universities have the job of training students and teaching them, right? So you could be a teaching faculty. You could also just be a research faculty. If you don't like to teach, you will usually be in somebody's lab who gets the funding, and you manage the research. So there's also, in the US, there are clearly two tracks. One is teaching faculty and one is research faculty. So those are very straightforward choices. There is also management within academia. You could be the dean, you could be a vice chancellor. All these are scientists generally. Professor Reddy now is dean of School of Life Sciences, and he's a thoroughbred scientist. So you could enter into management as well, being within academia by being a dean or vice chancellor. You could be a director of an institute or a principal of a college, as Dr. Hema, one of our members, has been. So having managerial options are also open up to you once you have a PhD, even within academia. Now, the industry, you still have the option of running a lab or being in management. So let me expand on that. The key difference between academia and industry, in academia, you're kind of expected to stand on your own and develop your own research program, train students, and publish papers. In industry, it is more about what the company wants to do. The company might want to work on a product. So irrespective of what your interest is, you have to be working on that product. And publication is not the first thing in industry, it's more patents first and then publication. So there are differences. Academia is more about individual kind of, growing their knowledge base and training student. Industry is more about being a team player. There are some other management roles in the industry that I'll describe. Being a CEO, I mean, that obviously a lot of companies when they start out have a technical person as CEO. So whoever starts a company is the CEO. When you go to large company like the Pfizer's or Dr. Reddy's, those jobs are, kind of distributed. There's a CEO who's normally in a large company more of a business person, but there is a CSO who's really takes care of all the science that goes on in the company. For example, Dr. Reddy's, we had like 45,000 people, of which I'm thinking 30,000 must have been scientists. We had a drug discovery unit, which had, I think at peak, I had like 350 people in the team working on different projects. And my job as CSO really was to coordinate all their activities and report back to the CEO saying what's going on, because the CEO person is more of a business. Below CSO is a vice president. So there'll be, for example, at Dr. Reddy's, when I was there, I had like 7 different vice presidents or senior vice presidents who I was accountable for. So each vice president normally will take care of one area like immunology or toxicity or toxicology or pharmacology. So those are subject matter experts. But as a CSO and CEO, your bandwidth is much more. You have to be able to understand what the issue is, and how you problem solving is really more about that. You could be an entrepreneur. I mean, you can take my example. I am currently an entrepreneur. You also could be part of the marketing team. When a product is launched, they also need a scientist to be able to advertise for the product to the physicians or to the patients. And that needs a heavy background in science. So you can be part of that. I already talked to you about clinical research, patent management, and being a product and portfolio manager. What happens like at Dr. Reddy's at any given time, they'll be working on 10, 15 different products. somebody has to kind of manage what budgets, what timelines, when will one come off, when will move forward, all that. So as a PhD in industry and business, I would say your options are really unlimited. I really, I'm not the best person to talk about academia. Obviously, there are some fantastic opportunities, but I tell you, the opportunities industry that exist today are also very, very exciting. So how do you choose? I've gone through basically what your options are during after master's, what your options are after your PhD, and within that, options in academia, options in industry. So there are many choices. I mean, if you add up everything that I showed, there are probably 30 choices that you have. So how do you make that choice? I mean, do you just toss a coin and say, if it is heads, I'm going to academia. If it is tails, I'm going to industry. No, it doesn't work that way. This is a life-changing decision you're making. It's a very important decision. So I'll tell you how I made the decision of going not to academia, but to industry. A lot of my peers who were my people who did postdoc with me and my friends, I would say 9 out of 10 chose to go to academia because that was the thing. But I could never visualize myself as a professor. So I tried to visualize myself. I was just finishing a postdoc and I said, what would I like to be in 5 to 10 years? And the picture of being a professor never really, came to me. It was always a picture of being product oriented, business oriented, desire to be management, a CEO, all that. So one trick is to visualize yourself, and that's a very important thing. Having clarity in your mind of where you yourself have a 5-year plan, and that will make it easier for you. Also play to your strength. So for example, if you like scientific writing, for example, right, then you should choose to go into scientific writing. I mean, scientific writers are required in industry, in news media, everywhere, and you could test it out today by starting your own blog and writing about COVID, for example. So play to your strength. What is your strength? I mean, my strength clearly was I wanted to be in the industry and be a CEO, for example, right? So try and play to your strength, not to your weakness. Don't compete with everybody else that's aiming for the same thing. Try and find a niche for yourself. Very important is bullet number 3. You have to try and experience it. However, as much as I will tell you, or Professor Redana tells you, or Professor Hema will tell you, the only substitute for really is you have to do an internship. And I would go out and say, if you can afford to do an internship, even if it doesn't pay, it is a great investment in your future. So during an internship that I would ideally say should be 6 months. So if you're thinking of going into the business side, right, of the industry, look around and look at industries. For example, if it's Dr. Reddy, see if they're offering internship in their business division. So go there, or my lab offers internship. So if you're thinking of a science career, especially in the business world, you could come to my lab. Very important to have your own experience. You cannot learn from other people. There's only a limit to what you can learn from other people's experience. The other thing is talk to people who have done it. And the FABA student wing is precisely for that. There are leaders in the that will be able to help you. I mean, I've already given you some names. Professor Redana, if you want academia, Dr. Hema, if you want to talk about academia, myself, Ajit, Dr. Ajit Kamath, who's also industry. So there are unlimited resources for you available today, which were not available to me when I made the decision. Make use of that. The other thing is usually you do well at what you like, so don't force yourself to do just because somebody else. So you listen to your heart, right? If your heart says, I need to be a business scientist, then be, but also make sure that it's practical. Don't think that in 3 years' time, I'm going to compete with Pfizer and have revenues. That's very impractical. You're not thinking with your mind then. So your objectives have to be realistic. In 3 years' time, very likely, if you entered academia or industry, you in academia, for example, you'll say, "I'll have two PhD students." In industry, I'll say, "Well, I'll go in as a scientist and move up to being a senior scientist." So have very practical, measurable, manageable milestones in your mind. Don't be in a comfort zone. This is where, when I was at Pfizer and I left, out of the blue, I left and went to a startup company. In fact, AtheroGenics, I was the second employee after the CEO. Why did I do that? Because in my mind, it was a tactical move. It wasn't just a chance of leaving a comfortable job as Pfizer, because I really thought I wanted to be CEO. I did not think I would ever be the CEO of Pfizer. So I thought, okay, let me go to a smaller company at a very senior level as a vice president. What happens there is that once you're a vice president, your next jump has to be a CEO, right? So I kind of got out of my comfort zone and did that. And it worked for me. It may or may not work for you. That's just the way things are. But it was a calculated risk. What if the startup company had failed within 1 year? Highly likely. You know what? My wife actually had a job. So I did not have to worry about putting food on the table. I had somebody. So it was a calculated risk. So as you can see, I took a risk because I had the vision of being a CEO, but I mitigated the risk by knowing that my wife, oh, who's also a scientist, had a job, and we don't have to worry, be homeless or don't have any. So when you take risks, first of all, you have to take risks. I think if you really want to be disproportionately successful compared to your peers, you have to take risks, but it has to be a calculated risk. How do you, and once you have taken those, how do you continue? It's like, you're standing on a treadmill, right? The one that you used to run. If you just stand still there and don't run, you will fall down. Building your career is exactly like that. You have to keep running. And one of the first thing you need to do is network. What is network? Network is reaching out to other people in your field who are established, who are emerging. Keep talking to them, see are there opportunities and all that. And in this world today, I did not have that. The only way I could network was when there was a conference. I could go meet people. But today you have something called LinkedIn. If you have not created a LinkedIn profile already, please create one today. However little you have to say about yourself, it's okay. You create a link and start to follow leaders. That's net part of the networking, right? I mean, it's a great way to network. Network is important. Networking is important because there are opportunities out there. That's the only way you can learn. So, and also and as I'll tell you, you have to have a profile of yourself for 5 years. And if you have not that clarity, look at a colleague or somebody senior who you admire and say, I like the way he is working on his career, and try and capture what has he or she done to get to that. So so that will be very helpful for you. The other thing these days I find is people changing jobs. And I'll come to that. You have to change a job only opportunistically. I left Pfizer and went to startup because I saw that as an opportunity to get to being a CEO one day, right? Not because they offered me, I don't know, 5,000 rupees more. I'm very, very against people at younger ages who change jobs just to get 5,000 rupee increments. And I'll talk about that. I think that's actually a step back in your career. And as always, have clarity of mind, a clear goal, 5-year goal. You write it down today. However vague it may, write it down. Next year I'll do that. It may or may not happen, but it's like a lottery ticket. Till you don't buy a ticket, you're not going to likely to win a lottery anyway, right? So it's like that. To buy that lottery ticket, write down where you see it. Very, very important. Have an image and target of yourself. Don't be shy. The other thing is, once even at a level of a vice president, you have to keep improving. The competition, while the world has gotten global now, anybody can attract talent from anywhere, right? I mean, I could have people, we have business development people in our company who are sitting in the US. So business development people in India are actually competing with them. It's a global. thing. So acquire additional skills all the time, and it is easier to do that when you're younger than you as you get older. Your ability to acquire new skills kind of diminishes. And online courses are a great way. If, for example, if you're interested in clinical trials, you don't have a background in statistics, which is what is needed. Go online and choose a course and get a degree on or a diploma or even a e-certification in statistics. If you have time, get additional degrees. If you have a master's, see if you have the ability to do a PhD. Or with master's, you want to get into business in science, try and do an MBA. Additional degrees will also help you a lot. The other thing is try and create yourself a unique experience, which means when 50 people apply for the same job, you have to kind of stand out. So, as an example, if all your life you've done molecular biology, try and go get some experience as an in vivo biologist, for example. In vivo, as you know, is more working with animals. Molecular biology is in vitro largely. So, add some layers of uniqueness to your thing. I'm a firm believer of looking for leadership roles, and I'll tell you why. Always aim for being a leadership. Choose a role model. It helps a lot. I chose role models. My dad, being a scientist, was my role model, and later on, Dr. Reddy, the founder of Dr. Reddy's, who was a business person, science business, was my role model. So choose a role model. So keep the bottom line here is keep improving. Just because you got promoted doesn't mean you'll say, well, this is great, I'm promoted, I don't have to worry about anything. That's actually a very bad attitude, because somebody who has additional experience or degrees or whatever can easily be replaced by you. So keep improving. It's like, remember the treadmill example I gave you. Keep running, and keep increasing that speed, because that's the only way. If you stop, you're going to fall off. Yeah, so this is a very, I often get asked, so I want to change the job, sir. And so I will ask, why do you want to change the job, sir? I'm right now making whatever, 30,000, and the other job's going to give me 35,000. And my strong advice to them is you have to get out. I don't think you belong in science, for example. Job hopping at parallel opportunities. You're a research associate here because somebody else is giving you 5,000, but you're still a research associate. I think is a very step, is actually a step backward in your career. I have never done that. I always, if you look at my background I showed you, my goal was to have a higher title every single time. Senior scientist, VP, CSO, CEO. That I think, so don't make these parallel changes just because you're getting 5,000. Instead, you have to look for newer job titles, newer responsibilities. That's what adds value to your resume. Somebody who's going to pay you 30,000 is not going to reject you simply because you asked for 35, right? I mean, the 5,000 here or there does not matter at all. What matters is he or she is a research associate. I have to hire this person as a senior scientist now. That's really what it's all about. And when you go to a new job, don't just go and do the same thing. You should learn a new skill. You go into a job and you're supposed to be doing science. Try to learn about, how are they patenting? Is there a commercial team that does the marketing? Try and learn as much as you can. Building a career is not a 9 to 5 job, even though you go to office 9 and come back and stay. Building a career is way more than that. And I'm sharing some of the strategic and tactical things that most successful people do. It is not by chance that people become successful and CEO and all that. They have carefully built their life, and that is the only way. The only way is to be calculative, clear objectives, and follow some of the guidelines that I'm giving here. Very, very important. Nothing happens by chance. People will always say, did you look at her? She got so lucky. She's now got promoted. It doesn't happen by luck. There is something he or she has done to deserve that. And it's the same thing in our careers. You have to be constantly doing something better to get there. Last two, three slides, what does the industry look for? And I'm totally focusing on industry because I come from that background. So unlike academia, where I said it's all about intellectual stimulation, building your group, your lab, having PhD students, publishing, being a key opinion leader in that field. Those are, the basic elements of an academic career. And then finally ending up as dean or vice chancellor or principal. In the industry, it's very different. You cannot be just focused on one problem. You have to be very flexible. Today, I'll give you an example. When we started the company, I was working on drug metabolism. Suddenly, boom, COVID happened. We changed directions, and now most of the lab is focused on working on COVID related products. See, that's the flexibility I'm talking about that industry looks for. Productivity is very important. You just cannot go there and treat it as, well, I have an industry job. I'm just going to eat. Every day matters. If you talk to people in my lab, I'll tell you how I run my lab. Every morning, I WhatsApp to them what needs to be done. Every evening, they actually report backward. That's how industry works. There is no two ways about it. Whether you work for Pfizer or you work for a startup, total focus on productivity is very important. There is no downtime at all. Broad knowledge base. So people like to have people who have, now the word is called bandwidth. You have to have a bandwidth, which is what is happening, even though you may not be working on COVID or your thesis is not on COVID or your research, you should know what's going on. What is the Delta variant? How many vaccines do you have? It's within the realm of what is expected of you when you go for a new, so keep yourself abreast with what's happening on a daily basis. Like, I don't know how many know there's a breakthrough news about Delta virus today. Very exciting news. It says that people who have been vaccinated may have a poorer response against the Wuhan virus, right? All the existing viruses are against the Wuhan virus strain. But now they're saying against Delta viruses, their immune response may be slightly less effective. That's a breakthrough news that you should know. If you did not know it by now, I would say you're falling behind. You have to be talked about willing to change to new skills. You're working on drug metabolism. Somebody says, well, we need to work on COVID diagnostics. Drop everything and start doing that. Willing to take directions, unlike academia, where you're your own boss. I mean, you are the king of the ship, you're the captain of the ship. In industry, you will always have somebody who will give you directions. That's the way the nature is. And be prepared for that. There's nothing wrong with that, right? That's a business. They also look for potential for leadership. And I'll tell you how I define leadership. I think it's very important because when we hire people, we also may want to make sure that tomorrow this person could eventually be a vice president, right? So I'm thinking 10 years from now. So potential for leadership is important. The biggest breakthrough that has happened for people at MS PhD levels in India today is the startup culture. If you have not already heard about this, you should visit BioNest at the University of Hyderabad, which is an incubation center for startup companies. What is a startup company? We are a startup company, ReaGene Innovations. We are about 4 or 5 employees. We are just starting up. The word startup means we are just 1-2 years old. And this is my 3rd year at BioNest. We have 5 employees who are working in 3 products. And COVID actually has mushroomed a lot of these startup companies. So if you're looking to experience what business is like, I would say join a startup company. It's worth taking that risk. The risk with startup company is they only work within 3 and 5 year horizon. If you ask me today where ReaGene is going to be in 10 years, I can give you some gyan, but really we work on 3 to 5 year windows. So unlike Pfizer that has a clear plan for the next 20 years, but this is an excellent place to learn about business. So if you have any interest at all in going into the industry, either do an internship in a startup or whatever, or you join a startup because you will learn a lot. Talking to my my colleagues in the lab yesterday, they were just saying it was eye-opening for them to be at Bioness, to know that science has these opportunities of incubating the startups, products. They had never imagined any of this. So a startup industry, do not look down upon startup jobs. Somebody might tell you, why are you going to start up? Go to Dr. Reddy's, you're assured of a job. But the learnings that you get at a startup are unparalleled. You will learn so many different things you will not learn in an established. So early on in your career, startup is good. So I strongly recommend that. There are some skills that are frequently not found, like people with in vivo research, animal biology research are rare. So that's a skill. If you're excited about that, definitely get that. Organic forms medicinal chemistry, which is making drug-like molecules. That's also a skill that's actually scarce, and people are looking for those. Regulatory, see, every product that approves has to be blessed by the US FDA or in India, CDSCO. And there is a process, there is a set of rules there, and that's called regulatory. That also, most people don't like it because it's pretty, it's like mundane. But people who have some background on regulatory, and there's a lot of courses you can do to learn about regulatory. What is regulatory? How to get drugs approved? How do diagnostic get approved? You could do that. And project management also. So these are at least a few of the things that are rare. People with these skills are more likely to have a job. I'm not saying the others are not, but these are skills that I foresee in the next 15 years, there will be an importance for these people with the skills. Aspire for leadership skills, and you can be a leader of 2 members in the lab or 2,000, doesn't matter. But why do I harp so much on leadership? Leadership is your opportunity to give direction, to also have better control of what is going on. So what is a leader? Leader is somebody who motivates others and guides them, is not antagonistic. You leaders generally have good communication skills. Leaders, most successful leaders are not bossy. And a great example, again, I give of Professor Reddy. I have been on the School of Life Sciences board, and it was amazing to watch him work with his peers and get things done. So leaders take charge without being bossy. They can get down to the level of who the peers are, and just pull a chair and have coffee with them. You don't need to actually keep showing who the boss is. My father used to say, if you have to tell others that I'm your boss, you're probably a very bad boss. So I already talked about leaders are visionary, that they see things. Also, I think very important, leaders are approachable and nice in general. There is being nice and approachable is free. It doesn't cost anything. Please be approachable and nice if you have aspirations to be a leader. Also be humble. It doesn't really matter whether you got awards or whatever. Be humble and don't be insecure, because others can see insecurity in you very quickly. Insecurity is very infectious, actually. Remain calm under any problem. At least put an exterior of that you're calm. So I think leadership should be the aspiration of everybody. It's not something that I have a gene and you don't. We all have potential to be a leader. And I strongly suggest that you look at being a leader right from today. You don't have to wait till you become a vice president. I think the future of pharma industry jobs is fantastic as long as you're flexible and mobile. You may have to go to Vijayawada to work in a plant. You have to work for a company which is in the US, global. And you may have to change direction. As long as these basic rules you understand, future of pharma industry in India is just fantastic, I think. So my take-home messages are there are several opportunities for masters and PhD. B.Sc alone is a little tough because then people have to train you and all that. But once you have made the M.sc, which means you're committed into science, and then PhD, a lot of opportunities. Industry is looking for young talent. There is no question. And that's why FABA Academy and the student wing that you hopefully are members and have joined is very important, because you will know exactly, where to look, what to look, how to be mentored. And your resume, there has to be something about your resume or CV that stand out. It's like in a parking lot, all cars are blue or brown, and there's one red car, right? you automatically get attracted towards that. So please try and build a resume that has that red carness to it, whether it's because you have done an additional statistics course or whatever it is. Find that one thing that you're different. Use your network, LinkedIn, and above all, stay competitive. Don't be complacent. And this is another last thing. Be grateful to your mentors and teachers. You, me, all of us are here only because we had fantastic mentors and teachers. I told you, my B.Sc and M.sc is from India. Great teachers. I'm here only today because of that. So I strongly, strongly say that you have to really be grateful for everything that people, especially teachers, have done in your life. And here's a great example of my mentor. Look at what Dr. Anji Reddy told me. I mean, my first mentor and idol was my father, but from a business perspective is Dr. Reddy. He said, everyone has a purpose in life and a unique talent to give to others. So don't think that, well, I'm not going to be able to I'm just an MSc or I'm just a PhD. No, all of us have certain uniqueness. And I think you should find out what it is and exploit that to go ahead. But just be grateful. Just be grateful that you have come along this far and remember who brought you this far. So I'm going to stop now and take any questions. I don't know if I've exceeded the time, Nidhi, but I'll throw it back to you.
Thank you, Dr. Uday, for delivering such insightful talk and sharing your experiences with us. I'm sure many of us have got some idea and choices to be made for their careers. Now the panel is open for discussion. Guys, you can unmute yourself and ask your questions, or you can also post your questions in the chat box. I would be addressing them to Dr. Uday. We may take the questions from audience, please.
Hi, Akhila. So there are a lot of questions in the chat box already. Could you please address those to the speaker, please?
Yes.
And the audience can only put the questions in the chat box. Yeah?
Yeah, sure.
Sure. Please
Okay.
go ahead.
So,
Yeah.
okay, the first question is from Sindhu Yalavarthi. Sir, do you think doing a job for a year and then pursuing PhD is a good idea?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the year that you should find what you want to be. That was not an option available to when I was there, right? Because my parents couldn't afford really some of the things that you can afford today. Yeah, 100%. But use that 1 year not as a picnic, but to learn about yourself. And at the end of that 1 year, you should have clarity on what you want to do. PhD or no PhD, that should be the goal. So as long as it is a goal oriented 1 year job, there's no problem. I think you should do it. Yes.
And the next question is from Akondi Sriram. Is PhD important?
So it just depends on what it's like asking me, was Ram married to Sita, I guess. But as I already told you, there are certain career options that's available only if you have a PhD. But if you don't, especially in the industry and also faculty, I think there are certain, and I walk through those. So it depends. If is your aspiration more towards being a faculty and a professor in a university or a CEO or a CSO of a company? If that is your aspiration, then yes, I think you have to have a PhD. But if your aspiration is to go into the business, like as I said, clinical trial research or finance, business analyst or any of those, then you don't need. I mean, what you need though still might be an MBA degree. You will still need an additional degree. There is no shortcut to being successful. So I would say just define where you want to be in 5 years, see if MSc is enough for that. And if it is, then you can go that route, but also see what you will need to do with an MS. So yeah, it's perfectly a personal decision.
Yes.
Going to a PhD is an irreversible step in some ways. So yeah, I commend you on asking that question, that is it really important or not. So it just depends on your personal 5 year goal. I hope you have written it down by now. I want to see it actually.
Yes, sir. And the next question is from Muskan. After BSc, internship opportunities will be available.
Yes. I mean, we recently offered one in our lab, but what we are finding is they're not quite, their level of training is not enough for them to be a productive intern. It's for more for them. That's what I have found. It is better that you do an internship after MS, because then it'll be more productive for you. But if you're getting an opportunity after BS, take it and see how it works out. But I think the best value for money is after an MS, I think.
Yes, sir. And now the other question is from Nidit Joshi. Hello, sir. Is it necessary to get a postdoc after PhD to get a job in the industry?
Yes and no. It does depends on what you did in your PhD. So if you worked on something, you designed a new model for a particular disease, say cancer that didn't exist before, and the industry wants it, you will get a job right after PhD. So it just depends on what you did in during your PhD. Did you develop or a skill or a model or a talent that the industry wants? Then you will do it. But a lot of the times that's not true. So you have to go and do a postdoc and acquire that additional thing that the industry. So it just depends a lot on what you did. If you're doing a PhD in translational research, which is product oriented, the likelihood is that you will probably find a job in the industry easier than if you worked on something basic. Again, one thing is not right, the other thing is wrong. It's not like it's just an individual thing. So
Yes, sir. The next question is from Minurani. Sir, I have always gone with the flow. Now I'm doing my PhD. How I should decide which line to go for, academia or industry?
yeah, I mean, go with the flow is okay, but time has come for you to be more strategic and tactical about your career. You cannot just go with the flow anymore. I think you've run out of time. So go today and make a list of where you see yourself, what attracts you the most, who's your role model, all of those things I talked about. That will give you, and if you're still undecided, do an internship in academic lab. I mean, you already know about academic labs because you're doing PhD. Go, the other side is industry. Go do an internship in industry and see what that takes, and then make a decision. Be tactical though. Do not go with the flow is great. That's okay if you're going to a mall or going to watch a movie, but designing your career cannot just be go with the flow. So I would strongly suggest today you have to say, I don't know, I like industry, but I am not sure. Then go do an internship in industry and make a decision. Yep.
Yes, sir.
Experience it
Next,
yourself is what I'm saying. Sorry.
okay, sir. Thank you. So the next question is from Sri Shiva. Is it good to do masters in biotechnology in USA after BSc for getting into a job relating scientist or assistant scientist or entrepreneur?
I mean, my answer is a little mixed. I mean, just because you did a master's in biotechnology, are you more as an attractive, candidate for me? No, just depends, I mean, if you look at how much money you spend to do a master's versus how much you would do to do it here, it offsets it. So I would say it's more about not as much about US and India, but what program. So if the MS biotechnology program you did was something that would be attractive to industry, for example, some MS biotechnologies, I think a lot of them now have internship programs where you go to industry. And that experience to me would be more important than having an MS from some vague university in the US. So it's all about what you learned during the program and what as an employer can I get out of it. It's always nice. There is no question that it's always nice, but you have to think about how much money and effort. If you're going to all the way to do a MS there, I would suggest that you stay on for a PhD. Otherwise, look for an MS here with an internship program, and I would prefer that. So,
Yes, sir. The next question is from Janavi PV. Good evening, sir. I'm doing my master's in biotechnology. I'm very much interested in doing research, but due to pandemic, everything was stopped. But handling is very important, and I'm a bit worried and want to know how future science will be and on what basis a student is hired in the competition world.
oh, I think the future is very bright, Janvi. The COVID is a temporary thing, and none of us have any control over that. So stop worrying about that. This is something that is beyond your control. don't worry about uncontrollables. It will go away. The sun will rise, mankind will, be there. So you just, again, I think, just to be clear in your head, when COVID goes away, which I think by the end of this year, things should hopefully normalize. What do you want to do? Do you want to do a PhD? Do you want to go to industry? Write that down. That is more important than, worrying about what am I going to do? COVID is here. It's nothing you can do about it, but make your own agenda. Your agenda, has to be clear in your mind. And if it is not clear, talk to mentors such as Professor Reddy, Dr. Hema for academia. I'm there for industry. Yeah, but that clarity of thought is very important rather than worrying about, uh, you know, what's going to happen with COVID. So there's enough people thinking about that. You don't need to think about that.
Yes, sir. The next question is from Rajni Jadhav. Hello, sir. I'm student of B Pharma. I want to become a businesswoman. Which course is better after B Pharmacy?
B Pharmacy is a very good course, actually, with business oriented course. If you're going towards business, I would strongly suggest that you get an MBA degree, a business degree, master's in business administration. Just with a B Pharm, you're too young professionally to be able to find something that is very meaningful. So if you have made a commitment to be a businesswoman in the science area, specifically pharmacy, whatever, I would strongly urge you to for start, get a business diploma, get a feel for it. But so your education to be a business person in science would be incomplete without having some degree of business background, either a diploma or preferably an MBA. I know about business simply by longevity because I've spent so much time now. I know that, but you have the opportunity to do online diplomas and whatnot. So I would say do that. Yes.
Yes, sir. And the next question is, hello, good evening, sir. I'm student of the M.sc Genetics and Genomics. After completing M.sc, which course will be better choice?
Oh, I think this is
Genetics or
a
genomics?
very exciting course. I mean, genetics, genomics is kind of what you hear about, the genome sequencing of different variants every single day. So your options again are depending on what you want to do. If you wanted to go to academia, you probably have to do a PhD. If you want to experience industry, there are probably jobs available for you. If not, do an internship, but you're well positioned. The decision is yours. You have to choose, is it academia or industry? If academia, PhD, industry, get some experience and go there. So yep. Yeah. And the world is at your feet.
Yes, sir. And the next question is from K. Sweta. Sir, please suggest some websites, training institutes, and project management and regulatory training.
Oh, I think you'll have to Google that or talk to our Dr. Nidhi Khurana is here, talk to her. But, off the top of my head, I don't know. But it's simple enough that you can Google some search words and you will find online courses for, what you just mentioned. So, yeah.
Yes, sir. And the next question is from Dr. K. Sweta. Sir, how to manage if the academic curriculum is completely multidisciplinary, where B.Sc, M.sc, and Ph.D. are in different subjects?
Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming that your BSc is not in arts and your MSc is not in music and your PhD in science, right? I mean, they have to be connected. So as long as they are connected, you should be able to make the adjustment. That's one of the flexibilities thing I'm talking about for your generation is you have to have multidisciplinary. So for example, if your BSc in botany, zoology, science, which is what, and my MSc was in biochemistry, then my PhD was more in molecular biology. Those were easy transitions because your foundation is quite strong. So I don't think you need to worry too much about having, unless you did in completely different area, then you have a lot of learning to do. Yeah.
Yes, sir. And the next question is from Monica. What are the expectations of industry from academia to bridge their gaps?
Oh, we have the world's best person to talk about that, Professor Reddy. I'm going to ask him to give a couple of minutes of his wisdom to all of you. I mean, he's a pioneer in trying to bridge the gap. Exactly the words you use, bridge the gap between academia and industry. Professor Reddy, please. You're on mute.
I
Yeah,
think
please.
that's why we have started this FABA Academy. This FABA Academy is to fill the gap between academy and industry in skill set that's required. So, see, the kind of training in the academic institutions that you get is basic in the sense, but industry requires specialized skills. And those specialized skills you need to do, you could learn probably through internship or maybe a kind of a short period of opportunity if you can get in the industry like startup companies Dr. Uday was mentioning. There you could probably learn more of the skill set that is required. So in fact, that is the major lacunae. The industry is always complaining that the products coming out of academic institutions are not ready. They require more skills. And to bridge that kind of gap, I think you need to do some kind of the workshops or training programs you have to attend. And FABA Academy has been conducting a series of such workshops, which probably help you to get into the industry. We follow the FABA Academy workshops, and you will get to know more about the skill set required in the industry.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Reddy. Yes.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir. The next question is from MD Afsa. Sir, I completed M.sc Geology. What are the opportunities that are present in FABA for me?
Oh, I will let Dr. Nidhi talk to you about that, and maybe also if Professor Hema is here, the two of them can give you very crisp answers on that. So Nidhi, do you want to comment and then hand it over to Dr. Hema?
So if they're asking about opportunities with FABA Academy, well, definitely we are very young right now, just 1 year old in terms of FABA Academy, although FABA has been in existence for like 17 years. So definitely we would be open to some internship opportunities, definitely. But once again, as you would know, we are not like, I'm just clarifying that we are not like scientifically involved. We do not do lab work or something if that is something that you want to pursue. But what we can give you is the guidance to for time management, for knowledge, like acquiring some management skills and learning some things that would fall out of your already comfort zone, because this will be entirely new. Yeah. So definitely you can write to me at nidhifaba@gmail.com. You can definitely write to me and I would love to talk more to you with respect to your questions. And so, yeah, I think that is what FABA Academy can do to you. We did have interns last year and they were exposed to all the kind of, managerial procedures with respect to social media handling and everything. I'm sorry about the background. That's my daughter, can't help it. But yes, so if you're interested in something pursuing other than what you do routinely, write to me. Yeah.
Thank you, Nidhi. Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Nidhi. Okay, so the next question is from Galia Ali. Hi, sir. Right now, I'm doing my master's of microbiology. After finished master's, I want to be a microbiologist and a pathologist, both. So, what should I do? PhD of microbiology. Which career is better?
I think if you've decided to be have a science and career and you have the option of doing a PhD, I think you should definitely do a PhD. And if you like microbiology or pathology, do a PhD in a lab that is working in those areas. So definitely do that. If it is not clear to you whether it's microbiology or pathology, although they are related, but they're also different, go do an internship in a hospital in a pathology lab and see what that entails. But if the decision is to be a scientist, yeah, I would recommend PhD. And then whether it's microbiology or pathology, just look around what are the labs that are working on those and see if there's anything, talk to the principal investigator, the faculty, and see if anything what they're doing is of interest to you. So yeah, that would be my
Yes,
next step if I were you. Yeah.
yes, sir. So the next question is, hello, sir. Right now I'm done with my master's in biotechnology, and now I'm planning for double masters. What do you suggest?
Yeah, I think, I mean, first of all, it depends on why you want to do a double master's. I mean, your option of that's not the first thing I would have thought of if after finishing a master's, unless you didn't like the master's area that you did. Perhaps you did it in, I don't know, biotechnology sounds like, and now you want to go into cell molecular biology, then that's a good reason to do another master's. But if your reason is only because I'm not sure what I want to do, doing another master's is not going to add much value to you. I would rather that you sit down and perhaps do an internship or consider doing a PhD. So my short answer is double masters, unless there is a very specific reason for you wanting to do it, is not a great investment.
Yes, sir. The next question is from Bojjala Shravya. Good evening, sir. I'm studying M.sc Integrated Biotechnology. Is PhD good in India or Germany?
Oh, I think, I mean, I have a lot of colleagues and friends of mine who did PhD in India and are as successful, if not more successful than me, who did it outside of India. So, see, the PhD is a very, the university name kind of goes out of the picture when you work on a PhD. PhD is more, if you work with Professor Reddy, it's cancer and inflammation, and industry likes that, right? They like that. So, when you're doing a PhD, obviously the option, if you'd go somewhere else outside, it's always good to get a bigger horizon. Germany, maybe, I don't know enough about Germany because I never studied there, but sounds like the quality of work that's done there. But my point is, when you come to a PhD, it just depends on the quality of what you worked on. What problem was it? How novel was it? What skills did you use? How many publications and all of that? That should be, more important than saying, I went to Germany and did it in 3 years, but I got no publications and I don't know what to do, right? That shouldn't be. So wherever you do it, it doesn't, unless you go to Harvard or Columbia or places like those that are beyond, those, just the name of going there opens doors for you. But short of that, yeah, I think it depends a lot on what topic you're working on and is it attractive to industry or academia. So
To
both of them,
substantiate,
yeah, please go ahead.
yeah, to substantiate, and that the institution is important where you are going to do PhD, either in India or in Germany. It is not the country. There are so many. The top universities are there in US and Europe, but there are also horrible universities. And, just bogus universities are there in other countries also. But where exactly you are going to do your PhD is the one that matters.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. So the next question is from Hiranmani. Hello, sir. How to search and get job in industry after PhD?
Oh, I think there are now, well, first of all, are you on LinkedIn or not? Because LinkedIn is a great way to connect with people in industry, start following them. There is also now recruiting agencies. These are also available now. You can talk to them, give your resume, and they will place you. So there are multiple options now. And then networking, I mean, perhaps you network with somebody in the industry, he or she might be saying, we are not recruiting, but I know that, Glenmark Pharma is recruiting. So three things, LinkedIn, networking, and using these websites that help people in recruitment. There are many in India also. So use those three things. So, and, going to webinars like this and getting to know people, and, there might be industry representatives there that you can start interacting with. So.
Yes, sir. The next question is from Sindhu. Sir, is it in order to get placed in a biotech company, is it necessary that one has to do an internship in certain area that the company is working on?
Not necessary. It's preferable simply because it will save us some time in training you more, but it's not necessary. I think if you've already done a research thesis during your master's, for example, and already have some research experience, then you really don't need the internship. I should tell you, should be more for your own learning and understanding. Is this really what I want to do? You know, so it should be to your benefit, not to the industry's benefit. So
Yes. The next question is from
I'm
Nidhi
sorry to
Joshi.
disturb. Akila,
Yes.
we can only take 2 more questions moving forward. Yeah,
Yes.
please go
Yes.
ahead.
So the next question is from Nidhi Joshi. Hello, sir. I love the insights you provided regarding the roles in the biotechnology industry. How could we connect with you if we need guidance?
oh, I think I'll let Nidhi comment on that. I'm open to interacting with people, but I don't know how Nidhi wants to handle that. So
Love for you to become a FABA student member and take the opportunity of exclusive networking with mentors like Dr. Uday Saxena. However, there's an alternative. You can always drop an email. It could be addressed to me or it could be addressed to info@biofaba.org.in. Introduce yourself, let us know whom do you want help from, mention the name, and we'll get back to you. Yeah.
thank you.
So the last question is from Manusha. I'm done with my master's in biotechnology and did internship in Pharma. But
Mhm.
now what I have to choose further for my career other than getting into industry?
So Pharma is a good experience. That'll really look good on your resume. So the question is, did you really enjoy working in that kind of a pharma setting? If you did, then your next step has to be, look for a more permanent job. And I'm sure hetero should be one of the first options you have. But if you're still uncertain about whether it's academia or industry, then I would kind of think it through some more. But if you're committed to being a scientist, then I would say look strongly at PhD programs.
Yes, sir. Thank you. That's all for the questions. Now I would like to request Janish to carry out the session.
Yeah, thank you, Akila.
Thank you, Akila. Thank you for managing the discussion panel. And now I would like to call Dr. Nidhi to propose the vote of thanks for this session.
So, well, thank you, Ganesh, for inviting me for the vote of thanks. Well, I think how Dr. Uday put everything for you in a presentation, starting from the very basics, proceeding on to what you can do with your degree and what positions to look for in the industry. See, he gave you an overview of everything that is out there and how you should approach for it. Now, the thing is, these decisions are very much personal. What you want to do is not what I want to do. And that would not be the same as what the third person would want to do. So you need to first discover that for yourself. Some people are very lucky to have found that answer way early in their life. But some people, they need different exposures to realize, okay, this is something that I enjoy doing, and this is something that I do not enjoy much. So what I want to say here is, do not fear. Try gaining the experience. Do not fear learning. Do not fear moving forward. There is no wrong direction, guys. There is no wrong direction, believe me. And as Dr. Uday said, he had a strategy in mind when he changed position from industry to industry. So he always wanted a title of the higher position in the second industry. So there was a strategy. That's it. He did not have point-to-point guidance or spoon feeding of, okay, Dr. Uday, you need to do this, and now you need to go to the second point and do this. No, but there was this direction, and he just followed that. He just stuck to a point, and he kind of moved towards it. So my recommendation to all of you, based on what we heard today, based on the mission of Student Forum from FABA Academy, is to keep learning. Keep an open eye to the opportunities. Google stuff, guys. Google stuff. Do not fear Googling. It is not going to harm you. It's not going to say what a silly question it is. So please feel free to Google. There are so many questions out here, the answers of which are easily available if you just type those keywords in Google. But I do not know what stops you from doing it, but do it. Dedicate yourself at least 20 minutes in a day so that you can sit and just do some random search based on your degree, based on your interest, and see what is out there. Yes, and along this line, I thank you. I thank you, Dr. Uday, for putting up this wonderful presentation for all of us. It was a well-deserved start to the official launch of Student Forum. We have much more to bring to all of you, and that is why
Nidhi, you're on mute for some
Ma'am, you're
reason.
on mute.
Okay. I think you guys lost me in the last sentence, but I said that we have a lot to bring to you, and to stay updated with our latest activities, please follow this Telegram channel that I just put the link in the chat box. Everything will be updated in real time. You do not need to visit you need to visit our websites, but you do not need to, kind of stay behind with the information that is being shared. So definitely follow that. And I already shared the link for e-certificate and feedback form. We will get back to the students who are interested in becoming a member, as we are going to give some exclusive benefits like internship and job opportunities, network building, mentoring, and also some professional development activities like preparing your CVs or resumes or even your LinkedIn profile. So with this, I thank Professor Reddy for his time and for every word of wisdom that he has shared with us today. Dr. Uday Saxena, once again, for his time and this wonderful, wonderful talk that he delivered. And everybody from the entire FABA team, Ganesh, Akhila, for doing an excellent job. And also Professor Hema Reddy, her internet connection was a little wobbly, so she left us maybe a little bit early. And so thank you so much, everybody. And we will hope to see you in our next activities. So definitely follow the link. Ganesh, you need to unmute now.
Thank you, ma'am. And I would also like to thank all the listeners. And apart from the Telegram channel, I would like to say that the other social media channels of the Academy has also been linked in the chat box. So please do follow us to get timely updates and activities regarding the FABA. And yes, thank you all again. Thank you for making this session a very successful one.